Boop. Happy Wednesday of Holy Week. It is April 8th. It's pretty bad that I have to look at my notes every day to know what day it is. But in the midst of everything we're going through, I think I'm not the only one doing that. I know a lot of people look at each other and go, what day is today? When people are at home all the time, one day kind of rolls into the next. Today's text, as a matter of fact, got me thinking about some people's very specific set of people and their experience right now. But I'm going to read the text that I'm going to focus on today. Our texts actually are, like I said, there's several. We have Isaiah 50, 4 through 9a today, Psalm 70, Hebrews 12, 1 through 3, and then John 13, 21 through 32. And I've been following John pretty closely, but I'm going to change it up a little bit today and focus on Isaiah 50, verses 4 through 9a. And when you see that, when you see A or B, just ignore it. Anyway. The Lord God has given me the tongue of a teacher, that I may know how to sustain the weary with a word. Morning by morning he wakens my ear to listen as those who are taught. The Lord God has opened my ear, and I was not rebellious. I did not turn backward. I gave my back to those who struck me, and my cheeks to those who pulled out the beard. I did not hide my face from insult and spitting. The Lord God helps me, therefore I have not been disgraced. Therefore I have set my face like flint, and I know that I shall not be put to shame. He who vindicates me is near. Who will contend with me? Let us stand up together. Who are my adversaries? Let them confront me. It is the Lord God who helps me. Who will declare me guilty? So that's Isaiah 54 through 9. Today, when I read that this morning, it made me think of all my teacher friends who are contending with all this in the midst of the COVID-19 epidemic. If you're already one of these people that homeschools your kids, it's probably your world hasn't changed that radically. But for those of us who do not and have children that are school age, I have a son that should be graduating. We should be getting ready for all of that, and that's all been put on hold. Like prom season has been destroyed. It is a radical departure from normal daily activities, and if you have a spouse that works in education, you probably get this on doubly. My wife is not a teacher, but she works for the school system, so she's been working at home, doing that telecommuting thing. And a lot of friends that I have that are teachers, I know that they are trying to figure all this out and teach from home, teach online. And it's amazing that they've been able to do that. It's amazing that kids I'll say my kids because I don't know everybody's experience. But they've actually been able to keep up with that. But then you have to think, somebody was pointing out to me, Miss Jackie, our administrative assistant here at Wesley, I was checking in with her the other day. She was talking about how she doesn't know how a lot of people who don't have access to good internet or don't really have reliable, even if they have access to internet, they might not really have access to good computers at home, and they're trying to do all this like maybe on a smartphone. She was saying she doesn't know how they do it. And so if you're one of those people in that situation and you're somehow getting by, good on you. But for all my teacher friends, all that have had to head into cyberspace to teach, the final frontier, I think they've found out that it's doable, but it's not preferable. That I think if I had to poll everyone that's trying to do this right now, we'd probably find out that while they've learned some tricks and they've seen some benefits to it, probably at the end of the day, nothing for them replaces a real FaceTime. Seeing your students online or doing that is probably okay, but at the end of the day, they really need one-on-one time with students, and there's nothing that replaces that. This idea of the Lord having, giving us the tongue of the teacher is, I guess, an early reference to speaking in tongues. But giving us the tongue of a teacher also makes me think about how the church has handled this whole COVID-19 coronavirus epidemic, whatever you want to call it, Dorona. We've kind of entered into this age of online church, which a lot of us were probably already dabbling in that, some better than others. Some churches have, really whole hog with streaming services, and so it wasn't so much of a shifting of gears or changing of tracks. They just put more effort into something that they were already doing. In some cases, they've learned how to do it better. In others, it's a really steep learning curve. Even for me doing these little things, it's kind of been a steep learning curve the past couple of weeks. But, as the church has moved online, I think it's interesting that I feel like, as I've watched colleagues do this, and even myself, I feel like we're kind of rediscovering this gift that God has given us, the tongue of the teacher, and how important that is. Maybe that it's something that we didn't really necessarily take seriously, but I think this experience where we've had to leave our buildings beside and move into, the little small box that you see us in, right? The little small box. It's like, I feel like I've seen a lot of my colleagues and myself also return to teaching, that we've rediscovered this tongue of the teacher. I think we've been forced to shed this culture called church that we've developed, and along with it, kind of all of the artifice and the artifacts and just the baggage that has gone along with it, that really, maybe at the end of the day, and I'm probably irritating some people right now, but at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff that we've come to call church and come to know as church and love as church, but at the end of the day, maybe really doesn't have as much to do with being church as we thought it did. I use these words artifice and artifacts and baggage kind of intentionally. There's a lot of things that you see everybody focusing on and worrying about getting right on a Sunday morning that I don't know really have to do with anything that God has given us to do or that Christ is calling us to do. Sometimes it's maybe just busyness, that we're not really doing the things that come with having the tongue of the teacher. And so, really short today, I'll leave with this. So, if we're given the gift of having the tongue of the teacher, what does that mean? Well, in this verse 4, he pretty much explains what that looks like. And that's why I say a lot of the things that we've had to jettison in the past few weeks, although the lights, the technology, everything else that goes with it, the programming for the sake of programming, or the programming thing because everybody else is programming that thing. At the end of the day, this gift that the Lord has given, this tongue of the teacher, finding the tongue of the teacher again means that we find ways to sustain the weary. And I think that's what a lot of us are doing, both the clergy and the laity who have found themselves online just having, talks like this. Like I said, the teachers really prefer face-to-face, and I think in the midst of this, a lot of us clergy have realized that's probably the thing we miss the most, being able to just sit down and talk with people. Maybe not so much, a lot of people have talked about it's weird to get up and preach to an empty room. I'm not sure that that's so much. For me, it's the ability to just sit down and have a cup of coffee or sit down and have lunch with somebody and talk about their life. To do the things that really sustain the weary. To listen to those who are taught. That's the interesting thing. It says here in verse 4, he every morning by morning he wakens my ear to listen as those who are taught. And that's probably the big thing that teachers do. They teach their students, but they learn from the students. Good pastors teach the flock, but they also learn from the flock, and they listen as those who are taught. And so here in the midst of this, of COVID-19, perhaps the biggest gift we're given and the biggest thing we're rediscovering is the tongue of a teacher. So, go out and practice speaking in tongues. Tell your pastor I said that. Bye. Boop.